When you're Black, you don't get anything. You already said they like our resources, but they don't like our people. But when it came to people of African descent, we took the humanity out of them. We called them third country nationals. You're not someone who's traumatized who fled away from something, right? You are a third country national. You're not number one. You are not number two. You are not number three. And that is still going on today. If we think about the United Nations, a lot of people think about human rights, but it was never created to include African countries or certain countries of the global south. That was not their intention. It was not their intention for the human rights treaties to include us people. As it stands right now, based on all what is happening in Africa, many Africans have come to the realization that the structure of the UN and certain global power dynamics have disproportionately affected African nations in a negative way, and this video will prove that. Before we dive into the details, have these few points behind your mind as you watch. When the United Nations was founded, most African countries were still under colonial rule by European powers. The initial structure of the UN reflected the interests of these colonial powers, and Africa had little representation in decision-making processes. Secondly, the UN Security Council's permanent member structure, excluding African countries, has been a point many overlook. And finally, the UN's role in fostering aid dependency rather than sustainable development just says it all. However, as I always say here on this channel, the narrative is changing. Listen to this and share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Can I start? Yes, you're free to start. So I do want to set the record straight on one thing. We've heard a few times the sentence, we gained our independence, we were given independence, but actually that's not true. We were always independent. We were independent nations, we were independent people, and we regained our independence. And I think that's a crucial difference because something was taken away from us and we took back what was always ours. So I urge everyone to not talk from the perspective of, oh, we got our independence in 1965, or they gave us our independence. No, they actively came to our countries, took our independence away. They enslaved us, they colonized us, and we took it back. Regarding the topic of neocolonialism, I have a bit of an issue with the neo. Neo is Latin for new. There's, for me, nothing new about it. It's true what Mug said in the beginning. Slavery and colonialism go hand in hand. And yes, it's true it was an economic structure to enrich oneself, but there's nothing neo about it. What happened 200-300 years ago is still happening today, right? If we think about the United Nations, a lot of people think about human rights. What I think about is the United Nations was created in San Francisco in 1945. If you think about how the world looked like 45, it was largely colonized, if not all. It was a small selective group of countries who created the UN, and it expanded over time, but it was never created to include African countries or certain countries of the global south. That was not their intention. It was not their intention for the human rights treaties to include us people, right? So there is nothing neo about it. Same goes for institutions like the World Bank, IMF, even the European Union. And like you already said, they like our resources, but they don't like our people. And I think the war in Ukraine is a very good example of that, because what we saw is that when you're white, you get everything. When you're Black, you don't get anything. I've been to those places. I traveled to Ukraine, to the bordering countries, to help people of African descent. And what you saw is that all of a sudden we didn't need conferences, we didn't need so many debates. We could adopt laws within a week, not even, to grant people asylum, money, housing, schooling, you name it. But when it came to people of African descent, we took the humanity out of them. We called them third country nationals. Third country nationals. You're not a number. You're not a person. You're not someone who's traumatized, who fled away from something, right? You are a third country national. You're not number one. You are not number two. You are not number three. And that is still going on today.
And maybe to specify for so that everyone can follow the third country national you're referring to now are specifically people from the African continent who were in the Ukraine, and then the selection happening over there with people fleeing towards.
Yes and no.
Yes and no? Yeah, please explain. Yeah.
My personal work is only focusing on people of African descent, nothing more and nothing less. That's a deliberate choice that we made as an organization that I proudly stand for. The entire concept of third country nationals is, I would say, in a social sense, if you have a skin color that's not white, what we saw is that third country nationals also entail people from India, indeed African people. When the war in Ukraine started, what we saw, especially in the university areas which are more towards the Russian border, is that they would queue people up based on their skin color. So if you were, let's say, someone from Morocco and very light skinned, you would place at front of the line. And if you're black, you would place at the end of the line. And that would determine the way how you would be evacuated, if at all. And at a certain point, they were like, we don't want those people over here. We don't want them. So let's call them not first class citizens, not second class citizens. Let's call them third country nationals. First country nationals generally means like you're from the country. Like I have a Dutch passport, so I'm officially a Dutch citizen. Second country national means that you have a passport from a European Union country, so you're a citizen of the European Union. Third country national generally means everything and anything outside of that, but in practice, it is something completely different. It's just a racist concept that takes the humanity out of them. The first one is colonial taxes. Today, there are 14 African countries who are required to pay with the French franc, which is absurd because in France, they pay with the euro. And without signing this agreement, they couldn't regain their independence. And then there is a second one, which is not only related to France, but also to Spain, to Portugal. The Netherlands had some part in it, and it's some kind of investment agreement. And it basically entails that, let's say you're in a given African country and you delve gold, and you think, oh, I want to sell that gold in the market to have some money. The country that colonized you, so let's say this happens in Madagascar, the Madagascar company who does the gold needs to mandatory talk to the Portuguese government, who is not on the continent, and offer them the gold and say, look, we've delved 100 kilos of gold and we want to sell it. If Portugal says we want to buy it, they buy it. They determine the rate. If Portugal at that point says we don't want to buy it, but at the same time we don't allow you to bring it to the market for others to buy it, they're not allowed to sell it. So I think those two also need to be mentioned because they're contributing heavily.
I think this is only three factors. So, I mean, if there's students here, people like, we need to, map all the different mechanics. And it sounds like Jan Pietersen Koen is still alive, like trying to monopolize a market. It sounds just like what they were fighting for at the time. Like, we decide who you sell to and why. So, thank you for sharing and adding that this is a far from complete picture as well.
I think the question that was posed is a valid one. I hate to break it to you, but we don't live in a utopia that everything is arranged and that everything is protected equally. Language is important. Culture is important. Religion is important. Yeah. Practices is important. Music, the way how you dance, talk, eat, everything is important. And what we're not going to do over here is play the oppression Olympics, because that's kind of the feeling that I get right now. Yes, it's true that there is extreme poverty and we should tackle extreme poverty, but we cannot say, oh, we're going to tackle this one first and we'll see along the way, and we have maybe an interim period and see what we're going to do to protect X, Y, and Z. Yeah. People all over the world have civil, political, and cultural rights. They have cultural rights for a reason, right? What we have seen with this enslavement of African people is that they took away everything. They took away your language, your religion, your names, your ceremonies, you name it. To say right now, okay, we're going to tackle poverty, and we put our trust in a single leader who will protect everything in the United States of Africa. People need to wake up. That's not how it works. Why would you put everything on the line and then just hope that someone will protect that? No, it should be protected equally. And sure, it's true, there are languages that you can learn easy, Swahili, and it's true. But should we focus on, oh, it's a language that you can learn easily? No, it's not your language. If you want to learn that language, like English is not my native language, but I learned it. It was my choice. But I make the decision which language I want to learn. But my native language needs to be protected.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think this is an important point, that we don't copy solutions that look European, right? So we have to decolonize our imagination, how unity and diversity, etc., can look like. Max, you want to respond to this response?
Just shortly, the unity I'm talking about, I said it at the beginning. It has nothing to do with culture. It has nothing to do with, how do you call this, history. It has to do with the future. How can Africa play a role in the world? Because at this moment, you can protect any culture you want in Africa, but our voice doesn't mean anything to nobody. So this is my priority. How can we turn Africa in a powerhouse in this world? Because we have a lot to offer to the world. That's the point. So the political unity of Africa is strategic to the survival of African. Like I said, if we don't reach this level, then we will end up with this genocide we are all afraid of. With our beautiful culture, our beautiful languages, we will not survive. So that's my point. We will not survive if we continue like this, divided and not trying to become a power. That's what I wanted to ask.
And I want to look to you for the rest. What do you want to say as final words towards the audience, what you think is most important to be done in relation to this subject?
I think that we should all be conscious that, however you want to name it, I don't believe in a refugee crisis. Immigration, asylum seekers, whatsoever, is linked to colonialism. There is a reparatory aspect attached to it. You know, like they came, they conquered, they exploited, they divided, they closed the borders, but they take the resources. There's a reason why people are leaving their countries. They're not doing it because they're bored or something. There's a reason behind it. And we all laugh, but they feel it.
Okay. This was a truth that I thought that was very necessary. People don't talk about what's really going on. We tend to act as though everything is all right. And what's going on in Africa